Hey, Wellmong World Entertainment, and it was a brand new weekend for two brand new movies, but with the same result that we've been seeing quite a lot. Yeah, they've bombed. It's quite badly as well. Those two movies, of course, are Kraven the Hunter and The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, which has performed worse than Kraven the Hunter. Yeah. Now, there's also been speculation and rumours that the Sony Spider-Man universe spin-off movies was done. That Kraven managed to kill it, that was it, they were pulling the plug. It looks like that may not necessarily be the case, which we will get into. But let's have a look at the actual box office numbers, because they do not paint a pretty picture at all for either of these movies. Now, the estimated results for the domestic take for Kraven went as low as $15 million. That was their projections. It started at something like 30 and went all the way down by half to 15. Well, it did worse than that, because domestically it only managed to bring in $11 million. Internationally is where they managed to win with their $15 million. For a worldwide total on its debut of $26 million. That's it. That's all this movie brought in, on a reported budget of $110 million. So it's nowhere near breaking even, and it probably ain't gonna break even. And every review I've seen of this thing has just said it's an absolute mess. Now, as for War of the Rohirrim, yeah, it's managed to do even worse than Kraven the Hunter, because domestically it managed to bring in a mere $4.6 million, and internationally did not fare any better, as it only managed to pull in $5.7 million for a worldwide total of $10.3 million. Wow. Now, I don't know what the budget is for the War of the Rohirrim. Plus, it had the Thursday preview, and the Thursday preview for it was an even bigger disaster. On over 2,500 screens, it only pulled in on preview night $625,000. That is terrible. Now, is it the case of people saw the trailer and went, more girl boss bullshit, I'm out? Is it, did Rings of Power actually destroyed the whole franchise? Did people think it's probably just Amazon again and said, no, we're out? Has Amazon managed to do damage to the overall brand of Lord of the Rings? This is not a good mark for what they're planning to do with this Search for Gollum and whatever that other movie is they're planning, which is not a Search for Gollum Part 2 or anything, which was the speculation. They've confirmed that. Don't know. Could be the fact that it's girl boss stuff. That's what was pushed to the forefront. They heard people say it's pretty girl bossy, and it basically sidelines and only somewhat features very briefly Helm Hammerhand, as opposed to him being the main focus. We don't know. Either way, it's an absolute disaster, and yet again, more egg on the face for Warner Brothers. Now, as for Kraven, again, this was being said that this movie was doing so bad that it was killing this spin-off universe for Spider-Man. Now, that doesn't seem to be the case, because it says this in this article: Sony Pictures may not be giving up on the SSU after all. Anyone going, what the hell is SSU? It's the Spider-Man something universe. I even said it a few minutes ago and I can't even remember now. It's actually got out of my head. What is it? Spider-Man something universe? It'll come to me and I'll say it. So earlier this week we heard that the studio had pretty much called the day on the Spider-Man spin-off franchise after the negative reception, both critically and commercially, of the latest installment, Kraven the Hunter. But it sounds like they might be planning to forge ahead after making some major changes. According to Deadline, Sony is taking this misfire very seriously and has a reset in store. So it doesn't sound like they're planning to go, oh, we're just going to scrap this. Instead, it sounds like they're going, we're going to take on board what everybody has been saying, what we've been doing, and we're going to reset. We're going to restart the whole thing and hunker down and try and do it better. You want to do it better, you know what you do. You make movies with these villains with Spider-Man. That's what you do. You don't keep giving us solo outings for the villains, then don't make them villains, but don't have Spider-Man in there. Make Spider-Man movies and use these villains. It continues anyway, saying, we're not sure what this means for the projects that were either already in development or being discussed, Agent Venom and the Sinister Six movies, etc. I only recently heard something about Agent Venom, but I thought that was going to be an animated thing. But wouldn't be at all surprised if the studio went back to the drawing board and scrapped any ideas that may have been in place. Is a franchise focused on Spider-Man characters without the iconic wall crawler something even worth attempting to salvage? Many fans would say no, but there's no denying the success of the Venom trilogy. So they're saying, well, the Venom's movies were successful, but is that enough to save you? No. And here's the difference between the likes of Venom and Madam Web and Morbius, and in particular Kraven. People knew who Venom was. Like, normies know of Venom. They know and recognize the name Venom. They know the look of Venom. That is one thing that you can't deny. They may not understand who Venom is and where he comes from and what he does and stuff, but they recognize Venom and the name. Kraven, they haven't a clue about. Madam Web, they haven't a clue about. Morbius, they haven't a clue about. If you turned around and said, we're going to give you an Agent Venom and the Sinister Six, they'd be looking at you going, the who? That's the difference between why Venom worked and these other movies didn't. And as much as and when I say Venom worked, what I mean by that is they made money. Even this last one, The Last Dance, it barely broke even, but it did break even and actually did bring in a tiny amount, but it still brought money in. Something Morbius didn't do, Madam Web didn't do, and Kraven most certainly is not going to do. So the idea of a reset, it makes sense, but at the same time, we've also heard from people within that studio, Sony that is, that say, like, the head people, the head honchos, the suits, the big Will.i.ams up in the offices despise the superhero movies, but they realise and understand they make shit tons of money, so they want to keep making them. Again, we want to salvage it. Focus on actually putting Spider-Man and using Spider-Man. Like, he's your character, for Christ's sake. And the only reason they keep making these movies, by the way, just in case you're wondering, it's not the case of, oh, they just want to try and get in on the whole superhero acting stuff. No. As much as they do think it will drag money in, it's actually the fact that it's a rights retainer. As soon as they put one of these movies out, they retain the rights for another 6, 7, 8 years and so on. That's why they do that. That's why we've also been given War of the Rohirrim, because they were about to lose the rights to the Lord of the Rings, all Lord of the Rings, where they would have to try and negotiate for those rights again, and they weren't willing to do that, so they scrambled and just put this together. This was never meant to be this big thing in terms of, oh, it's going to be the next epic trilogy coming out or something like that. No, it was literally a rights retainer. And as much as it succeeds in getting them to keep the rights, both Kraven and War of the Rohirrim, because they've put it out, they've covered their bases. It doesn't need to make money for them to keep the rights. They just needed to have a product of that brand out, which they now have. But neither one of these movies is going to make money. They are gigantic financial disasters that are going to cost these studios massive amount of money, but they've retained the rights. So we'll wait and see what actually happens. Will Sony actually kind of take on board all the criticism, the negativity that they've been getting over this Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man? And will they actually go, Yeah, I think we need to fix this and maybe actually start using these characters in the way they're meant to be, going up against Spider-Man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens and what the response will be with Kraven. So, with that, I shall leave it there for this one. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.